So what you're looking at here is the wheel cylinder, and I wanted to check it out actually. I wanted to really change that rubber. Let's have a look inside here. We've got to clean that bore out. This was well and truly stuck, so I better explain how I got this out. And it just came out with quite a bang actually. I didn't expect it to be quite as loud as this, but it was interesting. So this is the bleed screw. Now that's a block top bleed screw. It's from a different wheel cylinder. So I put that in the wheel cylinder hole. Don't know if it's in the bleed nipple hole or the flexible brake hose. And what I've done is put the flexible brake hose in the other hole, go to the end of the flexible brake hose. I've cut it off. Ooh. Now I've been experimenting with this. The thing that worked was this sports adapter for a ball. Putting it in the rubber hole and holding it to make a seal, and you can hold it. A lot of the times it will hiss. About 30 times I tried it, and every time I couldn't get a seal, but eventually I got a seal, and then using a simple foot pump, and I got the PSI with some rapid pumping to at least, it was frequently going on to the 80, maybe even the 90 PSI. But anyway, it let go, and the Girling cylinder came out. Now in order to help it out, I heated the whole thing up to a blowtorch. It was too hot to hold with a blowtorch, and I was putting some oil in there, and with a rubber faced mallet I tapped it down as far as it would go. It came up a bit, I tapped it down again, put more oil on it. It came up again, I tapped it down again, and then it let go. But it does show that you don't need an air compressor. You can get away with using a foot pump. This foot pump, it's a Michelin foot pump. I'm not recommending it at all, but it does come with a LILO adapter, and like I say, it comes with this sports adapter, and they fit in these little spaces for them in the back of the foot pump. So that was very, very good. So now that's the first one I've tried, and there's 3 more. So here's another wheel cylinder. This was one that wasn't a Girling. There's the spring. It's in good condition actually, and really the rubber isn't that bad, but let's have a look. So I had the foot pump here. Here's the end. Now don't worry about that bit hanging off, it just I couldn't cut the fibres off. Here's the flexible hose, and I had the wheel cylinder in here, and it flew off and hit that curb. There's a spray of oil, because I've been using a bit of oil to lubricate the bore. I was just holding the sports ball adapter in the end of that. It's consistently getting this one up to 90 PSI before I had to tap it back in the bore, put in a little bit more oil, because there was quite a lot holding it back, and it finally went off with a little pop. And like I say, it went about 1 metre. You wouldn't like to be in the way of it though. If it hit you in the face, it could give you quite a nasty eye injury. So I was well behind it. And let's have a look inside the bore. Much the same as the other one, only it's a metal case rather than the Girling, which is a magnesium alloy. And these will go again, because the bores aren't scored or anything. They had a little bit of light surface rust. I'm down here on my back doorstep. I thought better make a video of this, because you sometimes see a wheel cylinder that's this bad. And this is a it's even worse now, isn't it? No, this is a Girling. Let's have a look. It's upside down. Yeah, so this is a Girling. It's the original wheel cylinder for the 109 1962. So to be honest, it is worth trying to save it, because it's a quality part. And Girling, they've got a reputation for being solid as a rock, and so this it looks bad, don't it? But this is just surface. Obviously we need to get the piston out of the wheel cylinder. Needs a new gasket. So the first thing I'm going to do is put it in a vise probably hit it with a blowtorch and try and get rid of this flexible hose, and this will get rid of this. Okay, so what I've done is I've mounted the loose vise, just G-clamped it down on the bench. Now I've got the gurling is here in the jaws, and I've made sure that the jaws aren't touching the edge of the bore, because I want to keep that. I know it's got heavy oxidization, but you know, we'll see if that don't come off. I've taken the special nuts for the studs. Now the studs won't come out, which is a little bit awkward, and the first thing I want to do is try and remove this union brake pipe. This is the one that goes to the other wheel cylinder. So this must be the top wheel cylinder, and the bleed valve is on the other wheel cylinder of this brake drum or hub or anchor plate. They're mounted on the anchor plate. Anyway, so let's remove this broken old piece of pipe. So I've given this a damn good toasting, and you know, set fire to the old piece of gasket that was on there. Now I'm just going to it's a 7/16 normally, 7/16 across the flats, but that's rounded off, so we're going to use mole grips. Just going to grip on that and see what happens. So I reheated this one 5 times. I took the flexible hose out first because that just literally wanted to come out, and finally that wants to come now. And actually the 5th time that I used the blowtorch, I actually blowtorched the metal rather than the casing, because the casing seemed to disperse the heat much better than that's because they're 2 different materials. So the one to heat is the steel and not the aluminium, the magnesium casing or whatever it is. So that's the dry little bone that came out. So now we're ready to put a bleed screw that I know is shut in there, and my special converted flexible hose in there. Well, so that would be the first thing you want to do, but really while it's in the vise here, it's a good idea to try and actually move that cylinder back, because that's as far forward in its working life, that's as far forward as it would want to come out. So it can tap back, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tap it back a bit, and for that I'm going to use rather brutish blunt cold chisel, which will fit down that slot, and I'm going to use some sort of a hitting device, probably a hammer. So I'll have to look later, but there's definitely a sort of number 1 or a Roman numeral 1 on the front of this gurling. Anyway, so we're tapping that just tapped back quite easily, and now I'm going to get a piece of sort of light emery and some oil, and providing the body's not still too hot, I'm going to just getting that into focus there. Just going to go around the inside of this bore with a little bit of emery. I'm not trying to re-hone it at this stage. Just trying to get rid of some of that surface rust. I'm going to get in there with maybe some brake cleaner and some oil as well. I've sandpapered it, or used some emery just to get rid of a lot of the surface crud that was in the bore. There's still some in there. You can see where it was resting forward. I've pushed it back a bit. So what I'm going to do now is use some brake cleaner and a little bit of oil, and then try pushing it out with some homemade compressed air with a foot pump. So here's what it's like with the brake cleaner and the oil starting to seep in there. Now the reason I've got a welding glove on, welding gauntlet, is actually because the residual heat from the blowtorch is still on it. It's still quite a hot thing to hold. So now I'm going to set it up in the vise this way up and put my compressed air tube in. So let's have a look. This is my old bleed nipple that I know is blocked up because it's seized, so I've screwed that in the first hole. And this is an old flexible hose from Landrover, and I've just cut the flexible hose off. Now my foot pump came with a little sports ball adapter, and we can hold those two together. Let's come up a bit. Yeah, so I'm holding it in there. I'll try and use my foot. Oh, what's happening? Alright, I'm not holding it well enough. So some of those threads are getting in the way. You can hear it hissing out. Oh, it's going now. It don't make any sense. Alright, it's not working. So you can see the piston's nearly blown all the way out. Seems to be a trait with all of them that they get this far. You have to tap it back in and repeat it. Add some oil, maybe heat it up, but just keep on repeating it. Well, this one's quite strange because it's actually started to unwind with a screwdriver. So I was literally turning it anti-clockwise and it's started to come right out. So I'm going to continue with that. Well, sure enough, there it was. Unwound with a screwdriver, and there's the inside. This one, slightly, I'll be honest, I thought that the air was leaking out of this one. And so maybe that's why it had to unwind like that. But, so that one definitely needs refurbing because you can see the damage on the rubber. Not that, I mean, it was pretty obvious it needed refurbing when you have a look at the earlier pictures of it. So this last one was quite interesting. Use the compressed air again to finally get rid of it or let it out. Now inside is powder dry. There's lots of powder. Now the funny thing about this one is it was leaking air, so I had it surrounded by oil and bubbles were coming out rather than the compressed air building up behind it. And it's still hot. I tried unscrewing it and it was just turning round. So I used the blowtorch, just a little propane hand torch, and I heated the piston and added more oil, tried unscrewing it, and I just kept repeating that, and eventually it popped out. But it's bone dry down the bottom there. The oil didn't get past the seal, but the air was getting past and bubbling through the oil. So that was an annoying one. But that's all 4 of the front wheel cylinders done now. So couldn't have done it without a foot pump really. And a little sports adapter. And a regular Landrover flexi hose cut in half. Now this one is a bottom wheel cylinder because it's still got the bleed nipple in it. I'm going to just take that out and put it back in.